The internet is a strange and sprawling world, a labyrinth of information and activity that seems endless. Most people stick to the bright, polished surfaces where everything appears clean and orderly. But beneath that facade lies a hidden network, a dark underbelly known as the deep web. I had heard of it many times, stories whispered about its forbidden corners. For reasons I still can't fully explain, I couldn't resist the pull to explore it. It started as an experiment, a curiosity-driven dive into the unknown. I used the Tor browser, as every guide suggested, taking precautions to conceal my identity. At first, it felt like poking around in an abandoned house. Forgotten forums, black market listings, and files that no one was meant to see filled the hidden directories. The further I went, the stranger things became. I stumbled onto a site, no name, just a random string of characters for the URL. It promised live-streamed events, something called a red room. My pulse quickened as I hesitated. Part of me screamed to close the browser and delete everything. But another part of me, the reckless, curious part, clicked. The room opened to a live feed. At first, it was just a blank, dimly lit space. Then a young man was dragged into the frame, his face contorted in terror. He begged, pleaded with the unseen figures, promising he'd done nothing wrong. A poll appeared on the screen, asking the viewers whether he should live or die. My stomach turned. I clicked to spare him, hoping others would do the same. They didn't. The masked figure stepped forward and ended the young man's life with cold efficiency. The camera zoomed in on his final moments, and then the feed cut to black. My hands trembled as I closed the browser, vowing never to return. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. Despite the horror, I felt an urge to understand more, to see just how deep this rabbit hole went. A few nights later, I tried again. But as soon as I accessed another forum, my computer shut down. When it restarted, all my files were gone. The desktop held a single text file. Stop. Last warning. My heart pounded. It felt like a bad dream, a warning that I was in over my head. I should have stopped. I should have listened. But something compelled me to keep going. I reinstalled the system and entered the deep web once more. This time, I barely had time to click a link before my computer froze, then restarted. There was no message this time, just an eerie silence. About 20 minutes later, my doorbell rang. I froze. It was almost midnight. Peeking through the peephole, I saw no one. When I opened the door, a plain envelope lay on the ground. Inside was a single piece of paper with a simple message. We warned you. Attached to it was a photo of me sitting at my desk, taken through my webcam. My stomach dropped. They knew who I was. I locked every window and door in my apartment, double-checking each one. Sleep didn't come easy that night. The next day, I considered calling the police but dismissed the idea. What could I even tell them? That I went snooping in places I shouldn't have and now someone was watching me? A week passed. I told myself it was over, that whoever had sent the messages was done with me. But one evening, as I sat at my desk, I felt it. A presence. Turning slowly, I saw him. A man stood in the doorway to my bedroom, wearing dark clothes and a mask that obscured his face. My breath caught in my throat. I bolted for the kitchen and grabbed the largest knife I could find. Before I could turn around, he was on me. He slammed my head into the counter with brutal force, and the world went dark. When I came to, everything was different. I wasn't in my apartment anymore. The room was sterile, clinical, with harsh fluorescent lights. My hands were tied, and a camera loomed in the corner. I recognized the setup immediately. This was a red room, Panic surged through me as the masked man entered, flanked by others who remained in the shadows. He approached me with deliberate steps, holding a set of tools that made my blood run cold. He didn't say a word, but I knew what was coming. The next hour was a blur of pain and terror. He methodically broke me, stripping away any hope of resistance. The audience voted on my fate, just as they had with the young man I watched before. They didn't vote for death. That would have been too merciful. Instead, they wanted me to live, but broken. With precision, the masked figure took each of my fingers. The pain was indescribable, but the humiliation was worse. This wasn't just about punishment. It was about making sure I could never use a keyboard again. When it was over, they untied me and left me there, sobbing and bleeding. Hours passed before someone dumped me in a field on the outskirts of town. I was found by a passerby and taken to a hospital. The doctors did what they could, but there was no fixing what had been done. The police questioned me, but I said nothing. What could I tell them? That I'd been targeted by a shadowy group from the darkest corners of the internet? They never believed me. I moved to a new city, changed my name, and cut ties with everyone I knew. But the paranoia never left. Every time I see a stranger glance my way, I wonder if they're watching me. Every time I hear a knock at the door, my heart races. They let me go, but they didn't let me forget. I live every day knowing they're out there, and they're always watching. I'll never touch a computer again. The internet, once a source of endless fascination, has become a symbol of everything I fear. They took my hands, my sense of safety, and my peace of mind. And they left me with one unshakable truth. Some doors should never be open.
That Tuesday was like any other Tuesday I had experienced in the last few years. I had worked more than usual, and all I wanted to do was get home, fix myself something quick to eat, and go to bed. When I opened the front door, the house was empty. That was normal. My husband, Mark, worked the night shift at the hospital. I left my bag on the coat rack and walked to the kitchen. As I was heating water, I heard a noise in the bedroom. I stopped the microwave and tuned my ear. It could have been anything. Wood creaking, maybe the wind. I didn't think anything of it. Still, the uneasiness remained. I forced myself to go upstairs to my room to make sure everything was okay. As I opened the door, I stopped in my tracks. There was someone in bed. In the gloom, I made out a male figure. He was wearing a white t-shirt and gray underwear. The sheets were disheveled, and on them were scattered clothes I didn't recognize. It took a few seconds for my brain to process the scene. Mark? The man didn't respond. My heart began to pound. I knew this wasn't normal, but something made me freeze, trying to make sense of it. This wasn't my husband. Who was this guy? Excuse me? The man moved slightly as if he was waking up. He turned his head towards me and opened his eyes. They were dull eyes, but there was something deeply disturbing in his gaze. He sat up slightly, propping himself up on his elbows. Oh my God! Shocked, I turned around to call the police. The man barely reacted and rubbed his eyes as if nothing was out of place. Then finally, he spoke. I don't want any trouble. I'm just a little sleepy. His tone was neutral, almost indifferent. The calmness with which he said it disarmed me. This wasn't a thief looking to steal something. This guy didn't fit into any category that I could understand. I felt panic rise in my throat, but I forced myself to stay calm. I backed toward the hallway, not taking my eyes off him. My hand reached for my phone in the back pocket of my jeans. I'm going to call the police. You better get out right now. I warned him that I would call the police. I didn't know if that would scare him or enrage him, but I couldn't think of anything else. Then he got out of bed. He was taller than I had imagined, but thin, almost frail. He held up his hands in a sign of calm and took a step toward me. I don't want to hurt you. I really don't. I need someone to sleep with. He spoke slowly as if he were trying to reassure a frightened animal. I held the phone to my ear and dialed 911. As I waited for them to answer, he kept approaching with slow, almost calculated steps. I'm serious. I don't want any trouble. His voice grew strained, but he still wasn't shouting. There was something strange about him, a mixture of innocence and danger. 911, what's your emergency? The operator's voice brought me back to the present. Before I could speak, he leapt toward me with an agility I hadn't expected. I felt him snatch the phone from my hands and throw it to the ground. My first instinct was to scream, but I didn't have time. His hand covered my mouth tightly. Shut up. Don't scream. If you scream, I'm going to have to. He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't have to. The message was clear. I nodded quickly, trying to show that I understood. I felt his fingers trembling on my face. He seemed as nervous as I was. He let go of me and stepped back, breathing heavily. Then he pointed to the bed. You're going to lie there with me. I just want to sleep for a while. That's all. His tone was sharper now, as if he were on the verge of collapse. I shook my head, but he took another step toward me. Do it! The man shouted loudly, and my body reacted before my brain could process it. I moved toward the bed. He lay down first on the left side of the bed. He gestured for me to lie down next to him. Trembling, I lay on my stomach, feeling every muscle in my body tense. As soon as I settled in, he came up behind me, hugging me tightly. I could feel his breathing on the back of my neck, ragged and heavy. Stay still. Don't make me do something I don't want to. His voice sounded like it was about to break. It wasn't a direct threat, but the weight of his words was enough to keep me paralyzed. His arms were wrapped tightly around me, and every time I tried to move, he adjusted his grip. I closed my eyes tightly, trying not to cry. I felt something cold on my neck. My breathing stopped. It wasn't his hands. It was his teeth. He had rested them against my skin as if he were about to bite me. He wasn't, but he wasn't moving them either. It was as if he was toying with the idea. Panic hit me hard. I couldn't go on like this. I needed to do something. Without thinking, I threw an elbow backward with all my strength. I hit him in the ribs and he let out a grunt of pain. I seized the moment and rolled off the bed, running for the door. I didn't get very far. I felt a tug on my hair and fell to the floor on my knees. The pain was sharp, but the fear was worse. I turned to face him and saw his expression. He no longer looked human. His eyes were unfocused, filled with a fury I didn't understand. Don't move! But I was already struggling, trying to free myself from his grip. He lifted me by the hair and threw me against the wall. The blow made me dizzy. Before I could react, I saw him lift one leg, aiming straight for my head. I closed my eyes, waiting for the impact. A gunshot echoed in the room. I opened my eyes and saw him freeze, his hands raised. The fear on his face was as intense as mine. I turned my head and saw two policemen at the door, pointing their guns at him. One of them shouted an order I didn't understand, and the man let out a guttural shriek before dropping to the ground, covering his head. The officers handcuffed him as he stammered. I didn't mean any harm. I just wanted to sleep. He repeated this over and over again. His voice broke into tears, but his eyes remained those of someone lost in another world. They dragged him out of the room while I leaned against the wall, trying to catch my breath. One of the officers picked up my phone from the floor and handed it back to me. The call was still active. The officer heard everything and sent us. I was saved. I later learned that the man had escaped from a mental institution that same afternoon. He was not a criminal, according to reports. He had been admitted for violent behavior and hallucinations. But that didn't make what had happened any less frightening. For days, I couldn't sleep in that bed. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt his breath on the back of my neck, the weight of his arms and his teeth on my neck. Mark tried to help me, but for several days, I had to sleep away from him. Every night, I had nightmares that the man was next to me. Every time I woke up and saw a man next to me, I cried in despair. I don't know when I will be able to recover. Hell, I don't know if I will ever recover.
I work at a Waffle House in a small town in Texas. My name is Ryan. I'm 23 years old, and I've been stuck in this job that never changes for almost a year now. Waffle House is not my favorite place. If I have to be honest with you, I don't even like waffles. But I needed the job. Last year I moved out of my parents' house and they weren't in a position to help me. So I had to either work at whatever or go back. I promised myself that I would only stay for a month or two to get money together. But well, time goes by and I never got anything. As if that wasn't enough, I have a horrible anecdote to tell about Waffle House. If after this I decide to continue working, you'll understand how hard it is for me to get a job. That morning, I was on the opening shift, as usual. It was 6:30 a.m., and the darkness was just beginning to fade. Outside, the rain was falling in thick curtains, pounding hard against the window. The first customers of the day had not yet arrived. I stood bored, listening to the ceiling fan. As you can imagine, this wasn't the conventional Waffle House you all know. Our place is more humble. It doesn't even have air conditioning, and we don't have the luxury of having 2 or 3 employees at 6 a.m. Anyway, I was preparing the waffle mix when I heard the ringing of the doorbell. I looked up to see a man slowly walking in, soaking wet and wrapped in a black jacket, dripping water on the floor. His eyes were dark and sunken, and there was something about them that made me shiver. He didn't look like a regular customer. "Welcome to Waffle House." I didn't have to say that, but at the time it was something new, and I wanted to make things right. He didn't respond. Instead, he moved to a table by the window and sat down, leaving a puddle under him. "What can I get you this morning?"
I want coffee and waffles. Don't be too long."
The man struck me as both rude and unfriendly. I quickly prepared the coffee, feeling his eyes on my back. It felt really uncomfortable, like he was trying to pick apart my every move. I started to get a little nervous. No one had ever rushed me to serve him, and the fact his eyes were on me made me feel very uncomfortable. I poured the cup with trembling hands and began to cook the waffles, but he kept watching me, drumming his fingers on the table with an irritating rhythm. "Would you like anything else with that, sir? Bacon, eggs?"
If I had wanted any of that, I would have asked you. Don't you think so?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry." I served him the waffles and coffee and walked away quickly. But before I could get back to the counter, his voice stopped me.
These waffles are cold.
"They just came off the griddle."
Are you saying I'm lying?
"No, sir. I'm just saying it's unlikely. I did it as fast as I could." I still regret answering him. It was like I pushed the wrong button.
His face twisted in fury, and he slammed the coffee cup down on the table, spilling it everywhere. Listen, kid, I'm 67 years old, and you can't be more than 25. Dare to question what I say again, and I'll smash your face in, understand?
"Sir, please calm down. I can prepare another order." He grabbed his plate of waffles and threw it on the floor, breaking the plate into pieces.
This is garbage! What are you preparing another order for? What, are you gonna burn them for me? Spit on them? Do you think I was born yesterday?
"Please sit down, sir. No one's gonna spit in your waffles. I just want you to be comfortable here." I tried to calm him down, but he wouldn't listen. He started walking towards me, his fist clenched.
Oh, and now you don't talk back to me like before? You disgust me. You're a coward. You can't even fight, can you? Are you afraid, kid?
Furious, the man began to smash everything he could find. He grabbed a container of syrup and threw it against the counter, leaving a sweet smear on the walls. Then, he overturned the silverware dispenser, scattering it all over the floor.
You have no idea who you're dealing with. You should have never answered me. I'm completely insane, and you're a kid who works at Waffle House.
When I tried to reason with him, he snatched a salt shaker off a table and threw it at me. I ducked just in time to avoid it, but it hit the refrigerator behind me with a thud. At that moment, an older man entered the restaurant, probably a truck driver looking for breakfast. He stopped dead in his tracks when he saw the chaos.
"Hey, is everything okay? What's going on here?"
Get the hell out of here, you truck-driving trash!
The truck driver lifted his hands in a peace sign but didn't move. The man grabbed a chair and lifted it over his head, ready to throw it.
I told you to leave! Don't provoke me! The man came at him furiously, but before he could do anything, the truck driver ran at him and pushed him. They both fell to the ground and began to fight. I took advantage of the chaos to call the police. With trembling hands, I dialed the number as I watched the truck driver struggle to pin the man down. He was stronger than he looked and quickly broke free, grabbing a knife from the counter. I'm gonna kill you! I'm going to kill you both! He advanced toward the truck driver, who backed toward the door. Without thinking, I grabbed a hot pan from the griddle and ran at him, hitting him in the head. The knife fell to the ground and the man staggered before collapsing. The truck driver pinned him down while we waited for the police.
When the officers arrived, they found the man unconscious and the truck driver holding him down. They asked me to explain what had happened as they handcuffed him and let him out of the restaurant. Shortly after, he was taken away. When some of my colleagues had already arrived at the Waffle House, I was asked to come and give a statement about what happened with the truck driver. Apparently, the man was an ex-convict with a history of assault, and he had been causing trouble in town for weeks. The reason? His son refused to give him money, and then told him he never wanted to see him again. That morning, they closed the Waffle House for a few hours to clean up the mess. When everything was in order, the manager asked me if I wanted to take the rest of the day off, but I stayed. I didn't want to go home. Everyone, even the truck driver at the police station, cheered when I hit the psycho with the frying pan. I laughed and made jokes about how I would have hit him some more. But when I got home, I dropped everything and started crying. It was the most terrifying experience I ever had in my life. Although I never saw the man again. I'm always afraid he'll show up. Maybe he's fighting with someone and wants to get even with me. Or maybe he just remembers me. Is he still in jail? Possibly. But at some point he'll be released. From time to time, I look back at the frying pan I used to defend myself. Whenever I'm alone and someone enters the room, I instinctively reach for it. Who knows when I'll have to use it again. When I think of Josetsu, it's as if someone ripped a piece of my heart out of my chest. There's not a single day that goes by that I don't remember him, and I don't wonder how it could have been different if I had acted differently. We lived in Bilbao. We were inseparable. Josetsu had that spark, that ability to make you feel like life was lighter, even on the worst days. I was 29 years old when it all happened. It was in November 2019 when Josetsu met a girl on a dating app. Her name was Laura, or at least that's what it said in her profile. She was pretty and straightforward. She seemed perfect for him. He was constantly texting her, sending her emoji-laden messages and promises that they would meet in person. Although he had never been very trusting with that sort of thing, this time he was excited. He was showing me the pictures and the messages like an excited kid. When he told me he was meeting her in Zaragoza, I didn't take it seriously at first. Zaragoza? What are you doing all the way there? I asked him, half laughing. But Josetsu was determined. It's different, he told me. It's something special. I tried to warn him to be careful, but he laughed and called me paranoid. We would make the trip together. According to him, that way there would be someone in case things got weird. I didn't quite understand why he wanted me to go with him, but in the end I agreed. I never imagined that this decision would change me forever. We arrived in Zaragoza at noon. The city was quiet, with the fresh November air. Josetsu was nervous but excited. Laura had insisted that they meet in a neighborhood far from the center, something that seemed strange to me, but he trusted her blindly. The meeting point was a half-abandoned building on a narrow, empty street. I told him it didn't seem like a place for a first date, but he asked me not to be a spoiled sport. I'm sure she lives nearby. It's okay, he insisted. When we rang the doorbell, a female voice instructed us to go up to the 3rd floor. The inside of the building was worse than it looked from the outside. Broken stairs, graffiti-strewn walls, and a musty smell that wafted into our nostrils. I don't like this at all, Josetsu, I muttered. But he was so focused on his date that he didn't hear me. We arrived at the indicated floor, and the door was ajar. From inside we could hear laughter, but when we pushed to enter, everything went silent. A woman appeared in the doorframe, smiling. She was pretty, but something in her eyes gave me the creeps.
Well, you must be Josetsu.
But who are you? Oh, I'm a friend. I met him in the area and I was just leaving. No, come in for a moment. I just need some help with something. She opened the door wide and gestured for us to come in. Inside the apartment, the light was dim, and everything seemed to be randomly placed as if it wasn't really a place to live. There was a table in the center with leftover food and a couple of chairs. Laura motioned for us to sit down. I'll be right back. At this point, the red flags were obvious. We had to leave. This isn't right, dude. We gotta go. But he ignored me. Relax, man. It's okay. I'm sure she just needs help fixing something. Then we heard heavy footsteps coming from the hallway. A huge man appeared in the room, dressed in dark clothes.
So you're the one from the app?
Josetsu started to get up, but the man pulled out a knife and put it on the table.
Sit down.
My heart was pounding, but I did as he said. At that moment, Laura returned with 2 more men, both with the same menacing expression. What's going on here? My friend looked very nervous. He was almost shaking. And when he asked that question, furious. No one seemed to care, and no one answered. The man with the knife approached us.
You're gonna give us everything you have. Wallets, cell phones, watches. If you behave yourselves, there'll be no problems.
Josetsu tried to reason with him. We don't have much, but you can have whatever we have. As he spoke, my mind was working at full speed looking for a way out of there. There were no windows. The doors were blocked by 2 of the men, and we were completely helpless. Maybe giving them everything was for the best. Otherwise, we would die for sure. This was a very dangerous situation. These people could kill us and nobody would do anything about it. When Josetsu took out his wallet, one of the men yanked it away from him. Then they looked at me. Your turn. I gave them everything I had, praying they would let us go. But then, the man with the knife got more aggressive.
Hey, this isn't enough! Did you really think this is going to convince us?
It's all we have. I was thinking of paying for the date halfway. I'm sorry.
What, did you want to make the lady pay for everything? This isn't enough for half in any restaurant!
I'm sorry. Furious, he hit the barbell, and when he finally calmed down, he looked at Laura, and she nodded. Suddenly,
the 2 men blocking the door lunged at Josetsu, knocking him to the ground. Panic overcame me. I tried to get up, but the man with the knife pushed me back into the chair. Josetsu struggled and screamed, but they pinned him down with chilling ease. One of them took off his coat, searching for more valuables. My chance came in a second of distraction. One of the men holding Josetsu turned his head toward Laura to say something. Then, Josetsu pushed the man away. He shouted, "Run!" Without thinking, I got up and ran for the door. The man with the knife tried to catch me, but he tripped over the table. I felt the air cutting my face as I ran down the stairs at full speed, hearing the screams behind me. I reached the doorway and pushed the door with all my might. Outside, the street was deserted. I was about to keep running, but a man grabbed me from behind and slammed me against the wall. I tried to keep running, but I got too dizzy to take another step. I fell to the ground, my attacker still there, watching as I tried to catch my breath. After a few seconds of disorientation, the man grabbed my hair and threw me against the wall again. I fell to the ground more dizzy, and he began to tackle me to the floor. The man grabbed my shirt as if to pull me up, probably thinking I had fainted. I took that opportunity to headbutt him, and once I hit him, it was my attacker who had now lost his balance. I ran without looking back, my heart beating at an impossible pace. I don't know how long I ran, but when I finally stopped, I realized that Josetsu was not with me. I was leaving without him, but I had no other choice. I felt that if I didn't run alone, neither of us would make it. I called the police, stuttering as I tried to explain what had happened. They picked me up in a patrol car and we returned to the building. But when we arrived, there was no sign of anyone. The apartment was empty as if it had never been occupied.
They searched for Josetsu for weeks. They checked cameras, talked to neighbors, but they never found anything. I knew he had been taken. The place wasn't just a robbery. It was something much worse. It's been 4 years and I still can't sleep well. Sometimes I have nightmares in which I'm back in that apartment, surrounded by those cold faces, unable to move while Josetsu is taken away. The family and other friends consider that Josetsu is not still alive. No one ever judged me, and everyone tells me I did the right thing by escaping. But that answer isn't enough for me. Maybe I could have beaten the man who chased me, gone inside and fought with the rest. Maybe I could have done something, anything to make us both escape. But I didn't. No matter what heroic fantasy I have about saving Josetsu, I abandoned him. And that guilt will haunt me for the rest of my life.
I live in a modest house with my wife and our 2 kids. Life was simple and everything followed a clear routine. Every day I made sure the doors were locked and the windows secured. My focus was always on keeping a safe and orderly home. Our evenings were uneventful. Dinner together, some television, and then lights out. There was nothing remarkable about our nights until the sounds started. They weren't loud, but they were persistent enough to catch our attention. I paid them no mind at first, believing they were just the usual creaks of an old house. At night, I double-checked the locks and listened carefully. The noise was irregular, as if someone was moving through the house. I decided to install a few security cameras around the common areas. It seemed like a logical step to figure out the source of the disturbances. The decision to monitor our home came not from fear, but from a desire for clarity. I simply wanted to know what was happening when the house wasn't completely silent. I prepared the equipment and placed the cameras with a straightforward, no-nonsense approach. I never expected that what we would record would change everything. The unusual sounds began a few nights after the cameras were installed. At first, the noises were random sounds that a house would normally do. There was nothing overtly alarming about them. One morning while reviewing the footage, I paused on a frame that made my heart race. In our dining room, I saw a figure that did not belong. An old woman dressed in worn-out clothes. She was standing in the middle of the room. Her presence was out of place in our neat and orderly home, and her movements were deliberate. I rewound the video several times to be sure I was not mistaken. The figure was unmistakable. An elderly woman moving slowly through the room. I did not jump to any wild conclusions, but I knew this would require immediate attention. I decided to take practical measures to secure every entry point in the house. After replacing the locks and securing the windows, I hoped the unusual events would stop. A few nights passed with only the usual creaks of an old house. I remained skeptical but determined. I believed that the problem would vanish with these precautions in place. One evening, I got thirsty and headed downstairs for a glass of water. The hallway was dark and my footsteps echoed on the hardwood floor. I took a deep breath and reached the kitchen, expecting nothing out of the ordinary. The silence was almost complete, as if the night itself had hit a pause. Out of nowhere, she appeared. The old woman stood at the kitchen doorway, her presence disrupting the calm I had hoped for. In that moment, I lost my balance. My feet scrambled on the slick tile and I hit the floor hard. The impact jolted every nerve in my body. Before I could push myself up, she lunged at me. Her hand struck out, and I felt a harsh, cold pressure as her nails hit my face. In a flash, I was on the floor, dazed and bleeding from where her nails dug into my eyes. I managed to shove her aside with a desperate burst of strength. She retreated in a flash of movement, leaving me sprawled on the floor and wondering how I was still standing. Struggling to regain my senses, I forced myself to stand. Pain burnt where her nails had struck, but I couldn't let that slow me down. I shouted using every bit of energy I had left. "Rachel, someone's in the house!" A piercing scream responded from the direction of the children's room. I hobbled upstairs, each step a challenge as my vision remained blurry. The sound of my wife's cries pushed me forward, and I had to focus on reaching her quickly. I knew that every second counted. At the door of the children's room, I paused, heart pounding. Inside, the scene was both chaotic and surreal. My wife Rachel stood rooted to the spot, eyes fixed on something behind her. There in the middle of the room, the old woman held one of our smallest children. The intruder's grin was firm as she kept the child close, her tone low and threatening.
No one will take my son away. It's mine.
The tension in the room escalated quickly. I tried to step closer, my voice rising as I demanded control over the situation. Step back! Get off him! Rachel moved suddenly, her instincts taking over. Without hesitation, she lunged at the intruder. The old woman's arms flailed as she maintained her hold on our child. She was really strong for her age, like unnaturally strong. People say that in limited situations, people tend to show an overhuman strength. And this was the case. She was trying to take our child, but for some reason, she thought he was hers.
I am the real mother. You have no right to take my son.
Rachel managed to pull our child away from the intruder. In that instant, her face hardened with determination as she clutched the little one tightly. I maintained my stance, trying to keep her occupied while ensuring my wife and child were safe. The old woman's laughter grew louder, almost as if it was fuel for her aggression. For a split second, it looked like she would re-engage, but then the momentum changed. In a coordinated effort, Rachel and I managed to force her toward the window. My arms, still shaking from the earlier blow, managed to deliver a final push as Rachel's presence closed in. With a wild, jerky motion, the old woman stumbled and then leaped out of the window. I watched as her body fell into the night. The sound of breaking glass and her fading laughter marked the end of the physical confrontation. In that brief, shocking moment, the chaos that had taken our home came to an end. I stood in the middle of the room, trying to catch my breath and piece together what had just happened. The silence that followed was thick with disbelief and pain. In the hours that followed, the police arrived without delay. They searched the house from top to bottom, piecing together the events of the night. Their investigation was thorough and blunt. They identified the old woman as a known psychopath who had escaped from a psychiatric hospital during a severe storm. The officers explained that, despite our new locks and careful precautions, she had managed to slip in. Apparently, she had been hiding in our basement, tucked away in a corner. Her ability to evade detection until that night was as baffling as it was dangerous. Every detail of her intrusion was recorded and would be used in further inquiries. Now, as I recount these events, I do so in a matter-of-fact tone. The memories remain sharp and unfiltered, a constant reminder that our lives were interrupted by an intruder with a dark past. The night she appeared will be etched into my memory, not as a moment of fantasy or terror in a dream, but as a stark, unyielding chapter of our lives.